has hired Michael Hargraves. He's good. So I got to work with him a lot. He's very working. Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, he's great. Yes, that's where I met Michael first, because that was our law firm.
When the chair's talking, everything's closed, like, almost like closed captioning, and,
Yeah, we extended it, with Stones because procurement doesn't have enough time to deal with anything right now. So, yeah, but it's not exclusive, as you know. Yeah, no, I'm less satisfied.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our regular board meeting for April 26, 2023. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize with gratitude that this meeting is taking place on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. And also, we serve within the traditional unceded territories of both the Coast Salish and Nuu-chah-nulth peoples. And I know that we're all thankful to be here. And with that, we will get under the way. Before we go to the approval of the agenda, there are some changes to the agenda. Ms. Mohan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to call the board's attention to two potential changes to the agenda. One is that there were some urgent items at this morning's Committee of the Whole, and so the two recommendations from this morning's meeting will be added to the agenda as CR4. And I think most of those in attendance have the details of that in front of them that was handed out in the break. And the other item is that it's come to our attention that a director would like to advise of a notice of motion. And so that would come under agenda item 17, so it would be 17.1.
That'd be a notice of motion from Director Nicholson. All right, with those two changes, we'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Staples. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Mohan.
Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes. M1, the special board meeting of April 13th, 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Justice. All those in favor? Any opposed? None
And-
opposed, motion carries.
And M2 is the adoption of minutes from the regular board meeting of April 12th, 2023.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Douglas. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Mohan.
There is no business arising from the minutes, and at this time, I do not have anybody online for the public input period, so we go to public input period in the gallery.
That goes to public input period. None from the gallery today. Thank you very much, so we'll move right along. Ms. Mohan.
There are no delegations today, and so then we're on to report of the chairperson.
No report of the chairperson today.
There are three items of correspondence on today's agenda. The first is correspondence, C1, correspondence from the Cowichan Housing Association regarding an invitation to appoint a liaison to the Cowichan Housing Association Board of Directors. Item C2 is correspondence from the municipality of North Cowichan regarding a request to update the Cowichan Estuary Environmental Management Plan. And correspondence C3 is from UBCM regarding a provincial response to the 2022 resolutions. And those are for your information.
Thank you. So we'll start with C1. So you do see the correspondence there from the Cowichan Housing Association, and I see that we have Dr. Cook here in our gallery today. I want to thank the Cowichan Housing Association for reaching out to us. This has been a conversation that we've had at this table previous term and somewhat this term as well. And I would turn to the board for any questions or commentary, or perhaps a motion to refer to staff so that we could put this into our appointments system and then bring that back at our next meeting for discussion and an appointment to that liaison role. I did see Directors Wilson, and then I saw another director on this side, Martman and Abbott. Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I welcome this, and thank you for Dr. Cook for bringing this forward. Again, in the past, I think Mayor McGonigal and myself were very interested in serving on this, either him as lead and me as deputy, or something like that, but I would be more than happy to step forward, and I'm sure in his absence, so would Mayor McGonigal. Thank you.
Thank you. As I outlined, I think that, yeah, that we should refer it to staff so that we can include it in our, the appointment system that we have. So with liaisons and other board appointments, we do have a process that we work through, so I'd like to see staff's recommendation on that. I think that's been moved by Director Acton, seconded by Director Staples, so this refer to staff to be included in our board appointments schedule. And how that appointment might work, whether it's a vote of the board or appointment of the chair. So that motion is on the floor, and I'll go back to my speakers list. I did have Director Martman and Abbott. You're okay? Thank you, Director Abbott. Okay, so if there's no further discussion on the motion, call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Thank you for that. And thank you, Dr. Cook, for coming. I'm not sure if, yeah. Okay. All right, so that takes us to C2, and again, that's there for information. Director Douglas.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, there was actually a letter accompanying this letter from North Cowichan. So what the municipality had requested was a support letter from the Cowichan Valley Regional District as well. And what happened was this letter went to Minister Cullen with regards to updating the Cowichan History Environmental Management Plan from 1987. The letter was sent to Minister Nathan Cullen, Minister responsible for water, land, and resource operations. There were 4 other letters sent out to Cowichan Tribe, City of Duncan, the Cowichan Valley Regional District, and the Cowichan Estuary and Restoration Conservation Association, asking each of those organizations to provide a support letter as well. So the City of Duncan has provided a support letter to the province, encouraging an update of this estuary management plan, and there was a separate letter sent to the to yourself as chair, asking for a support letter from the CVRD.
Thank you, and apologies for not including that there. Would you like to make the motion that we provide that support letter?
Happy to.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Director Nicholson. Sorry, moved by Director Douglas, seconded by Director Staples.
So I have an issue with this. I really feel strongly that it should go to the Cowichan. We should ask the Cowichan Watershed Board for advice on this particular issue because it's complicated. It is a governance issue as well as a plan issue, like a land use plan issue. And I think it's a super important issue, and it really speaks to when you think of whole of watershed thinking, that you need to think about the whole, but it is very complicated and it has a lot of history to it. And I think the Cowichan Watershed Board is probably in the best position to provide advice at this point.
Thank you. Director Douglas, did you want to get back on the speakers list?
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Go ahead. I think you were next.
Totally agree with Director Nicholson, although this letter is just simply requesting the province update the plan, and I would expect that if the province does agree to that, it's just, to me, it would be obvious that the Cowichan Watershed Board should be involved in those discussions. And I would add that the proposal to send this letter actually came from Director Toporowski. Unfortunately, couldn't be with us here today, but Councillor Toporowski, I would note, was a member of the Cowichan Watershed Board and is also a longtime council member with Cowichan Tribes as well. So she is quite familiar with the issue, and I'm sure she would be very supportive of having the Cowichan Watershed Board very involved in any discussions related to updating this plan. But again, this letter is just asking for the province. We've got this plan from 1987. Our relationship with First Nations, our concerns about the climate change have changed significantly since that time, and we just want them to start a process for updating it. Hopefully if we do get agreement with them on that regard, then there will be, again, obviously the Cowichan Watershed Board has to be involved in those discussions about what that updated plan actually looks like.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to first-time speakers, but I have Director Nicholson back on, and I have a question in my mind. I'll go to Director Manhas and then back to Director Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Our mayor is absolutely right, Director. The motion that we passed at North Cowichan was that we would consult with all stakeholders in the estuary. So I guess the watershed would be part of the stakeholder group.
Okay, thank you. Director Nicholson.
I guess, this plan is an order in council. So opening up the plan is a big deal. And because the plan has, I guess in sort of broad strokes, the plan has protected the estuary as sort of status quo from when it was put in place. So it hasn't further degraded in essence, but the governance has not been working for the last long time. Over a decade, there's been serious questions about the governance aspect of it. And I think that if you open the plan up without having a good idea of where you want to go on the governance side of things, which again plays in very strongly to the First Nations aspect, I think that you may be running the risk of things moving in the wrong direction, moving backwards. So that's why I think it's so important to really think about this issue, have a good analysis of this issue, and understand where we want to go collectively in the region with the estuary before we ask the province to do something that we don't know what they're going to do.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold my thoughts and I'll go to Director Morrison next.
Thanks. This is, it seems like on the surface to be a fairly simple request, and much like I think I'm hearing from Director Nicholson, I'm a little concerned about unintended consequences and perhaps missed opportunities. And don't get me wrong, a letter of support for for a project or an event or something is something that we could deal with easily at this table as they come in if we had a chance to read them and the likes. But this is a big deal. It hasn't come up at our corporate strategic planning, and I get the sense that it's going to be sort of, if the province turns around and says, yeah, let's do this, it's going to be all hands on deck. So I'm a little inclined to be cautious here and think, do we need a look-see at whether reconciliation, DRIPA, whether there needs to be a First Nations lead on this, if there's a better approach than, and I appreciate North Cowichan's initiative on this, but is there a better approach to this than the local governments lining up and saying, crack this open? Because this is a big deal. This is a hugely important area to all of the region. And I'm a little concerned that we're maybe, I don't want to say naive in the approach, but that we aren't covering all of our bases in advance before we go and ask for this. What if we get a yes? Then it's going to change the focus of a lot of different organizations' work plans for the next little while. I don't know if I'm suggesting that we get staff to report on this or not, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. I have a growing speakers list. I may have a recommendation that perhaps the letter of support requested from the CVRD, we could refer the conversation to the Cowichan Watershed Board to receive that advice. That would bring the voice of Cowichan tribes to advise us on how we could put that letter forward. But I will go to my speakers list. I have Director Staples and Director Istash.
Now, I'm a tiny bit torn, but I think part of what will happen in the process is that all of the things that we're discussing will actually happen if that's opened up. And I have yet to see something happen really quickly with the province when we invite them to do something like this. So I don't also see that being a challenge. But I would, however, really appreciate, and that would be with just any provincial government, I just would like to see, has Cowichan Tribes, and I'm probably not allowed to ask a question, but through you, has Cowichan Tribes been asked for a letter of support as well? Yeah. They have been. Okay, thank you. Because I think that would possibly be something if Cowichan Tribes is willing to provide one and the regional district is willing to provide one under that if there's hesitation. But I feel like everything that we've talked about would be answered in that process, and 30 years is a long time, so I think it is important. But it'll probably take us another 10 to actually get to the process.
So we didn't have time to discuss it on Monday at the Cowichan Watershed Board meeting, but it was raised as a concern that the opportunity there for CVRD and Cowichan Tribes representatives to discuss this request. And I agree with you, nothing moves fast in provincial government. However, my experience has been when it does move fast, it doesn't often benefit those who've asked. So I've been in a lot of experiences with the provincial government in the last year where they did move quickly and the outcomes were definitely not what we had hoped or wished for. So there's that cautionary tale there, or cautionary experience that I've had personally with the province suddenly moving quickly and not delivering on the outcomes that we had hoped for. But I'll go to Director Istash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in response to the question and concerns risen by Director Nicholson, in the letter itself, it outlines as verbatim, the multiplicity of tenure jurisdictions and interests means community and stakeholder participation is essential. So this isn't saying people are going to be left out of it. This is saying let's have that discussion and have those people at the table. We're not asking to formulate a plan. We're asking to create the opportunity for that plan, which would, of course, include the Cowichan watershed. I think we can all appreciate that around the table. And to the Director Morrison, with concerns to the changing nature of reconciliation and where we are with DRIPA, as you can see, one of the prominent points of the reasonings to open up the estuary discussion is the change of nature of consultation with First Nations. And that's outlined right, this letter as a priority for North Cowichan. So obviously I'm biased being North Cowichan councillor, sitting this table as a director for that area. Just to say this, we just would really appreciate the support, for the reason being that we want to have everybody at the table. Things have changed and we need to make it happen.
Great discussion. Thank you. Director Martman.
Thank you, and good points. I think the thing I would add to this conversation is that once you do something, it's hard to say, well, let's consult after. And that's where I would say it's important to give the recognition to people that can provide input into a decision that you're asking of the board. And I think that I would like to hear what the Cowichan Watershed Board would report back on this, to get their input before going ahead with the letter. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have a motion on the floor. I do want to speak to the fact that we did have some discussion on the estuary, more around microplastics and the like at this month's Watershed Board meeting on Monday, but it was sort of tangentially referred to this request and some interest there on weighing in on the request. So I do have a motion on the floor to write a letter of support. If there's no amendment or referral coming forward, then I will call the question. Director Staples?
So I would like to, if it's within the spirit, just to amend it pending First Nation or input from the Cowichan Watershed Board.
Okay, that's been moved, seconded by Director Staples. Discussion on the amendment. Director Nicholson.
Well, I guess your option of looking to Cowichan Tribes directly would be a faster process than the Cowichan Watershed Board. You know, it would take them time to do that work. So if you wanted to do a letter quickly, or not, you would probably need to hear from Cowichan Tribes directly on that particular
Thank you.
amendment.
On the amendment, Director Douglas.
Just to be clear, Mr. Chair, as I was mentioned earlier, the municipality has written Cowichan Tribes directly requesting support for the letter. And I would add again, it's unfortunate Director Toporowski isn't here, but Director Toporowski was a longtime counselor with Cowichan Tribes, and my understanding was that Cowichan Tribes was aware that she was bringing forward this proposal to council with the idea that would eventually come forward to this board as well.
Okay, thank you. So the amendment on the floor is to consult with Cowichan Watershed Board. I'm not sure if that means we have to wait for a meeting, but on this letter of support, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment. If there's no further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, so the motion as amended would be to provide a letter of support and consultation with Cowichan Watershed Board for the estuary efforts that have been outlined in the letter from North Cowichan. Any further discussion on the motion? Director Morrison.
I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I would propose that we amend the motion by adding and/or Cowichan tribes.
Okay, that's an amendment, so amended to the amendment motion. Motion is amended, so it's an amendment to the amended. Seconded by Director Douglas, or just let me see if I have a seconder for that amendment first. I get the spirit of it, it might speed up the process.
That's my point.
Alternate Director Vomac has seconded the amendment, so I'll go to speakers on the amendment. Director Douglas.
So I think I'm getting a bit repetitive here, but as I mentioned twice already before, the municipality has written Cowichan tribes with regards to this proposal, asking for a letter of support and offering to discuss the matter as well. So I'm just not sure how that benefits it, benefits the, this proposal if I'm contacting Cowichan tribes on the one hand, and then you're contacting them as well regarding the same matter. It just seems a bit duplicative from my perspective.
I can appreciate that. However, an alternate perspective would be if we wrote a letter of support and Cowichan tribes wrote a letter with some other perspective, then our letters would seem to be in conflict. Potentially, I don't know. We haven't had the conversation, right? And I think we've committed, especially around watershed issues within Cowichan, to work in lockstep with Cowichan tribes. So I think in the principle and spirit of not so much sorry, got the inflection all wrong there. It behooves us at least to have the conversation, and I don't think it will delay things too much. I'll make sure that we move it along quickly. So that amendment is on the floor, and this would be and/or Cowichan tribes to the consultation with the Cowichan Watershed Board. If it's okay, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Director Nicholson opposed. The amendment carries. So as amended, that we write a letter of support in consultation with Cowichan Watershed Board and/or Cowichan tribes. On the motion, Director Nicholson.
I'm not going to quarrel with the motion at this point, but I think it's really important that that the issue of governance is part of the discussion about the plan. Like, so it's a larger issue than just the land use aspect of the plan that's laid out in the plan. And I think we do cover the governance, but I mean, that is a really key thing, and it's really about First Nations, actually.
Thank you, and I think that we can include that reflection in our letter would be constructive. So I'll call the question on the motion as amended. All those in favor and opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So I do believe that takes us to C3, which is there for information, provincial response to UBCM resolutions. With all the discussion we just had on the support letter, I don't know if we need to dig into the disappointment around some of the responses with, or excitement, but it's there for information. Is there any discussion? Not trying to quash any discussion or debate, but those are there for information. All right, seeing no speakers, we will move on. Ms. Mohan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's nothing under information in your agenda, but under number 9, committee commission reports, there's a number of items. The first is CR1, the report and recommendations of the Committee of the Whole meeting of April 12th, 2023.
Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been previously printed, and unless anyone wants anything pulled.
I'd like to pull 3.1 and 3.2.
All right. So then I will move 1, 2, and we have 3.1, 3.2, A, B, and 3. So which did you want pulled?
3.1 and 3.2 includes the whole thing,
Includes,
AB.
yeah, but there's a,
Then there's another number
there's
3.
another number
Oh.
3.
Is this a
I'll
formatting
pull,
issue?
think it
yeah,
might be,
I'll
yes.
pull 3, whatever is after encompassed in number 3.
Yeah, so it is 3, 1, 2, A, B, and 3. So that's
So I'll
basically,
move 1 and 2.
thank you. We have a seconder for 1 and 2. Somebody second this. Thank you, Director Abbott. Any discussion on 1 and 2? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. I'll go to Director Morrison. Maybe do you want to read 3, 1, 2, A, B, and 3? Follow that if you're nimble.
Yeah, and option B of the regional recreation building support of the committee of the whole meeting of April 12th, 2023 be approved. 2, within option B in the regional recreation governance report of the committee of the whole meeting of April 12th, 2023, that A, the first representative from a jurisdiction be an elected official from that jurisdiction, and B, the second representative from a jurisdiction, if applicable, be either an elected official or an appointed community member. And the second number 3, does A and B, is this staff report back to the committee of the whole on the feasibility of Cowichan Tribe's membership on the Cowichan Core Recreation Commission, and I move those items.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder or? Okay, I see a seconder from Director Nicholson, and I believe Director Martman wants to speak to this.
Thank you. And I did speak to the staff on this. Just to refresh people's memories, it's around how do you provide representation for those jurisdictions that don't meet the threshold of 6%? And I had mentioned earlier the idea of perhaps jurisdictions that could add up to 6% could have a representative so that they have a voice at the table. I did a quick look at the layout of the percentages, and I think it could add another representative per subcommittee or for governance. So I'd like to, I guess I'm speaking for exploring that idea and having staff look at how that could be incorporated if it's feasible. I speak strongly that areas that don't meet the level of 6% still should have some sort of voice, but within reason, of course, so it makes it practical. Thank you.
I'm going to put Mr. Elzinga on the spot. I know he can see it coming. Can you just reflect on that? On its face, it doesn't seem like a bad idea to me, but I would put that through and how it might affect a decision here today, whether it be more appropriate to vote on this, move it forward with that consideration in mind, or refer it back for further consideration. Mr. Elzinga.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to Director Martman. Thanks very much for bringing the idea forward. Staff are always available to investigate if the board wants to take on that piece of work to do that. What I understand from Director Martman is that for those representatives not assigned to a commission right now, so that would be potentially 7 to 9 jurisdictions that are not on any particular commission, that there would be a pool of 1 or 2 of those 7 or 9 that would be attending that commission. So we would have to talk about some sort of rotation or appointment process or something, and it could get complicated, but staff are willing to look at it and bring it back for your consideration.
So I might suggest that a follow-on motion, like that to keep these wheels turning would be wise. We don't want to delay the governance portion, but then maybe a subsequent motion that you could bring forward, Director Martman, to ask staff to investigate that option. I think you just outlined it verbally quite well. I don't know if you do have something written there. I should have known better. The guy who likes process. So if it's okay with you, Director Martman, I would call the question on this piece and then I'll come back to you for that motion. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Elzinga. Any further discussion on the motion? Oh, sorry, Director Acton, I had you on my list. Go ahead.
I don't remember this being urgent, that we had to make these decisions quickly today, but I'm struggling with this piece that states that and not to dismiss the amount of work that municipal directors do, but that the first representative is an elected official. So that would give, for example, Area B director, I forget how many more, 4 or 5 more commission meetings added to the roster. And so I guess my question is, can that be substituted with the alternate? Because currently the alternate can go for you, but they're not compensated. So that would be something we would have to look at. And actually, in some of the commissions, they can't actually take your spot. So to the Shawnee Lake Community Center, my alternate cannot take my spot. And I think actually for Kerry Park cannot either. So I think those details are important. And when Joe Barry sat here and helped us with our meetings, he continuously tried to take elected officials off of commissions because you are essentially advising yourself. So I don't think we discussed this portion of it enough.
Thank you. We do have a motion on the floor. I'll go to other speakers. I have no other speakers on my list. Yeah, well,
Is there
you're
anyone
free
else
to,
at the
but,
table that kind of feels this way too? And
well,
should we?
I feel like we've discussed this a lot. So if you're
Well,
asking how much
we discussed the topic a lot, but we didn't
Mhm.
discuss the appointment of the person on the commission.
Okay. I just don't want to get into a back and forth debate because your commentary raised a lot of issues for me, like the municipal directors, and I can't speak for other municipalities, but have a huge volume of meetings
Of course
with
you
our
do.
own committees and commissions and
Yes.
CAL meetings and council meetings in addition to all the meetings that we do at the CVRD. But I recognize that it's a big workload.
No,
I
but you have
did-
6 people to take your spot if you can't go. That's what was my point.
Well, let's get it out and compare hours. Like it's-
I started off by saying.
Oh, Jesse can't hear. Is IT support not online?
I tried not to offend.
I had a question.
It's impossible not to offend me.
I'll try.
Jesse can't hear.
You know, I can. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can
I
hear
can
you.
Okay, I can hear you. No, I put
Okay.
my hand up. I have a question.
Oh, he has a question. It's just because I'm not paying attention to Jesse on my screen. One moment, I do have Director Morrison and then Director McClinton.
So, yeah, I seem to recall a fair bit of debate on this, and I don't want to be repetitive, but there was a stage in our discussions where the entire topic of advisory commissions, were they even needed? And so, we're ultimately the decision makers, we're the representation for taxation. And I'm also kind of a keep it simple, stupid kind of guy. And I don't know that we need to veer away from what we've already fairly thoroughly debated in committee. And I'd like to see it move forward. And as Mr. Elzinga has said a whole bunch of times, this will be living and breathing and evolving. And I think we should get started on this. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Director McClinton and then myself.
Through the chair to, I'm not sure who can answer this question, but I'm just to Director Acton's point. I agree. Like, I think that could get extremely cumbersome. Can we amend the rules about who can sit on those committees later?
I can answer that as yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that was kind of where we ended up at committee was this is a good framework to start with, and then we can amend it as we go along through experience and the knowledge we gain through the work that we do. And that's what I was going to say, is in addition to apologizing for Director Acton for my overreaction. So I apologize, Director Acton. I was trying to be fun. And I also need an escort to my car. Director Segal.
I'm happy to move this forward, but I want to agree with Director Acton that having more community volunteers on these commissions is a good thing. So I'd be interested in future conversations on that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? None opposed? Opposed, Director Acton. For the record. All right, moving on. CR2
Hang
is... Oh, sorry. Oh, we're going to have Director Martman's motion. Thank you, Director Martman.
I'm so glad I pulled this. I'd like to move that staff explore and report back on the option of adding additional rep for the governance of the regional recreation for those jurisdictions that don't reach the 6% threshold.
That's been moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Director Morrison opposed, the motion carries. Oh, and McClinton. Sorry, Jesse, I want to put you up on the big screen by yourself, so can somebody do that on that? Just focus on Director McClinton. His big face up.
I prefer the voice of God.
All right, on that note, we'll move along. Ms. Mohan.
Item CR2 is report and recommendations of the Special Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of April 19th, 2023.
Director Nicholson.
Your Electoral Area Services Committee reports and recommends that staff be directed to review the bylaw compliance and enforcement policy.
It's been moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Wilson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Mohan.
Item CR3 is report and recommendations of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of April 19th, 2023.
Director Nicholson.
I've had, the first ones are for the whole board, and I've had 8 pulled, requested to be pulled, so is there anything else? So otherwise,
Sorry, and Ms. Mohan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We received some information for the board around number 10, so suggest that when we get there, that maybe that one be pulled as well.
Okay, thank you.
alrighty. So I move in a block 1 to 7.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, Director Segal? Discussion on 1 through 7. Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries. To number 8.
I move that the Wessex Ravine Park Stairway and Trail Connection Project proceed to construction in keeping with preliminary designs commissioned by McCaney, incorporating reasonable, feasible, and, sorry, I've got it, my collapse all items. Now I've lost it completely. And practical recommendations as offered in the most recent swell environmental review, along with Cowichan Tribe's comments received to date. So that's been moved.
Seconded by Director Abbott. Discussion? Director Martman.
Thank you. I was wondering if, I felt when we discussed this at committee that there was some incomplete information. I'm wondering if staff would be able to provide some background or some further information, I guess, number one, around the liability, potential liability of this decision, and also start with that one.
Through to staff, I'm not sure who would pick up that question, but, or if Mr. Farquhar's not here.
So we don't have staff available today, right now, to answer that question? Did you want to give direction to staff, or was that the nature of your motion, or?
Well, the motion on the floor is the one that's in the package, but Director Martman was asking about liability.
Right, so staff aren't prepared to answer the question in today's meeting, I guess is what I'm saying, so.
So maybe I can just make the motion to refer back to staff so we can answer some questions.
Okay, thank you. That motion's been made. Do we have a seconder? Director Nicholson. So this is a motion to refer. Ms. Mohan.
Sorry, we do have a motion on the floor already.
Right.
Do we need to not, we can leave that one? Okay, thank you.
You can only refer a motion that's been moved and seconded and is on the floor. So a motion to refer, discussions only on the propriety of the referral, not on the motion itself. I have Directors Abbott and Acton on the referral.
I'm, as most people around the table, new to this table. Mr. Martman, Director Martman is only marginally less new. But I have it under assurances from my predecessor that this has been debated at length since starting in 2008, and that all levels of government have been involved, going back many years, that reports have been done. I inquired of staff whether those reports could be unearthed, and that would require staff, a directive of staff to do so, or a of information request. I believe, as do my community members, believe that this needs to go through. You are being sensibly cautious, but I think this is something that has been approved, has gone through the process, and people are marching down that ravine in numerous different locations. So anything that any liability, it's already happening. It's happening because we've put in a water line, we've put in and approved new subdivisions. The activity is going on that bank every day, and every day another house deal closes and another family moves in. There are more people, cyclists, unaware that there was an intended and a directed, concentrated plan to get people to the ocean level and mitigate the damage that's currently going on. It's basically deja vu all over again, what we discussed last week at the EASC.
Thank you. Again, we're starting to wade into debating the motion and the item, not the referral to staff to look at liability. So on the referral, Director Acton.
I won't be supporting the referral. That topic was discussed at length, and there was no issue of liability compared to any other project, so I will not be supporting motion of referral.
Thank you. I saw Director Nicholson and then Director Martman again, and I gave latitude to Director Abbott, so I should provide the same latitude to others, but Director Morrison's like, no, you shouldn't. 1, 2 wrongs, 3 wrongs, 4 wrongs don't make a right? Quadruple negatives? No? Director Nicholson.
Well, I'll try and be on point here. I think it's really important to refer this back because when we had the meeting, there were questions that were not answered around potential risk and also the position of Cowichan tribes. And I think both of those pieces of information are very important to gather before we make a decision.
Thank you. Director Martman.
Jesse's first time speaker.
Oh, he's got that yellow hand up. I got no excuses. I'll go to Director McClinton before Director Martman.
Through the chair, just looking for little clarification. I don't even know if I can ask this. I would like to support the motion as it was originally written. So we have 2 motions that are on the floor before that need to be.
So the original motion's on the floor, and then there's been a motion to refer it back to staff to investigate liability.
Yeah.
So if you're supporting the original motion, you'd vote against the referral and for the original motion, if that's what you wanted to do. So I'll be clear when I call the question and go through my speakers list what we're doing when we do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Martman.
I'd just like to speak to process because, yes, I'm being cautious, but yes, I think there is information to be a factor into decision-making, and I would like the support of getting that information, and that's why the referral is being requested. From my perspective, I think the other piece that I look at is the liability piece is one, because there's always consequences of decisions. The second piece I would like to look for is First Nations consultation done before a decision's made, and I think that that's a piece that isn't clear, because there is no consultation done other than a letter saying the coordinator would support this going for a consultation. And then the third piece around it is.
Director Martman,
yeah.
This is on a motion to refer for liability.
I thought I had latitude, thank you.
Yeah, well, now you're saying you want a different referral than you put forward. You put forward a referral for liability, not for consultation.
I'll put another one after this then.
Once it's referred, it's referred. It's not on the floor anymore, so.
Okay.
You finish your other, you had another point to
I think
make.
the third point is, and again, it's about process and information, and I'm sorry I didn't put this all in the referral to begin with, is that if there is a negative impact on the herons, the question is that what is the consequence of losing a nest? I mean, that's the ultimate, concern, and will that mean that the project shut down? Will that mean the project changes? Do the viewing platforms get removed?
I'm sorry, you're really debating the issue now, not the referral, so.
Thank you.
And I will reflect on, I've been following this as a curious observer, I'm taking my own latitude now, but there are I wouldn't say dozens, but numerous trails going through that Heron area that would be mitigated through a proper approved pathway. The damage that's being done right now far exceeds what I believe what would happen with a proper approved trail. Director Morrison, since I burned all process, I'm telling you, after this item, I'm cracking down.
I'm going to try and stick to the propriety of referral, and I might even have a point of order. So this is exactly why the community out there is driven crazy by the delays that we impose on ourselves. I think it's pretty clear that this could probably move forward, and, given the supervision of our Parks Department, I won't support the referral. And I'd also ask, because I have not been fully attending the last few EASC meetings, why this would be in a all-director vote as opposed to an electoral area director vote.
Through to staff, I have that question as well. I know it's a parks thing, but it's also a community parks thing. Yeah. Through staff?
Sorry, I don't have an answer for you on that just at this moment, but if you give me some time, I can look into it.
Let's not worry about it.
Director Martman has an answer for us.
So-
He's got a special gold card to the lounge.
Well, it was because the question was asked at the ESC committee, if there is a liability, is it the electoral areas that assumes the liability, or is it the board?
Oh, so if it's a full decision of the board, it's a full owned by the board in full, not just the EAS?
But the park pays for it. Liabilities contained within the function.
Ms. Mohan?
So the response that I've had from staff is that this was reviewed by the corporate officer in terms of when the corporate officer makes recommendations as to which part of the agenda it goes on for voting, and this was his decision.
Okay, thank you. We can challenge it after. You can always bring it back at the next meeting. We can fight it out again. So the motion to refer is still on the floor, and I'm going to implore my colleagues that we can maybe call the question on the referral. Nope, Director Justice wants to weigh in.
Yeah, to the referral. I would just say, as a general rule, when a director needs more information to make a decision, the board should support that.
Thank you. It's called filibustering ourselves. Going to call the question on the referral. All those in favor? Directors Justice Nicholson, Deck in favor, and Martman in favor, and those opposed. The rest. I called the shorter list. Did you get the ones that were in favor, so we can do the math?
The only thing I didn't see is that, did everybody vote? Like, did everybody
Okay.
raise their hand? Yes? Okay, so then I'm good, yes.
Okay. Right, because if you didn't vote, then you're in favor. So I should always count the opposed. Wow, it's only early in this meeting and I'm already losing it. Back to the motion, which is as in the agenda. And I'm going to Director Nicholson.
I will move that the recommendation of the agricultural policy.
No, we still haven't called the question on number 8.
Oh, we
So,
didn't?
no, I called the question on the referral.
On the referral.
So I was
Okay.
going back to see if anybody wanted to speak on the
Sorry.
main motion.
No.
That they didn't say inappropriately on the referral motion. Director Martman.
So I'm not sure how many people around the table have read the correspondence from Cowichan Tribes. And I'd just like to quote from it. I tend to agree with the assessment of the Rocky Point Bird Observatory, and that's an attachment to the Swell report, that the project has no benefit to the herons and has real potential of disturbing the heron rookery, including, in the worst case, abandonment from both building the stairs and encouraging even more people to travel through there. That's one, and then it says, to get the perspective of Cowichan Tribe's leadership, I would recommend that this project be considered by the Quitsum, I'm not sure how to pronounce.
Tamuk,
thank you, committee. I can try to bring it forward in January, February. Every meeting, we speak about reconciliation, and we talk about action we can take. And I think to make a decision before you actually go out and consult, is not in the interest of reconciliation. And that's why I put this forward about saying I'd like to have this information before making the decision on this motion. The second piece is that people speak to the concept of it'll be the worst, or the better of two possible worst scenarios. And, you know, respectfully, I think we don't look at the option of saying, how do you protect the rookery? What can be done to just eliminate people walking through it altogether? And certainly, those options haven't been brought forward as a potential. And I think that those are the kind of things that I would ask that when you make a decision around this, that you do consider. The herons are a protected species. They don't have the option of saying, this is my private property. Sorry, you can't put a pathway through here. We all have that option when we own property. And so if you go look at Wessex Ravine, I would suggest they have nowhere to go once you put a stairway on the other side of the ravine. And they don't have a voice. And so I'm just trying to put it out there that the more information available, I think, is something that isn't going to stop this project. It isn't going to be something that is going to be, I guess it would just add to having more information to make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers on the motion? So this is just the motion on the floor is number 8 in your agenda package. Seeing no.
So,
Director Martman.
So I'd like to make a referral to Cowichan Tribes. Tumuk Committee. Thank you.
Okay, so that motion is to refer this matter to the Cowichan Tribes Tumuk Committee. Seconded by Director Staples. Discussion on the referral, and I'm going to tighten the reins here. I'm not sure it would have to be referred back to staff for consultation with the Cowichan Tribes Tumuk Committee. So if that's okay with the mover and seconder for clarity, because we can't refer an item that's on our table to a different table without it going back to staff. Okay, thank you. Director Acton.
It is referral? Can you say that?
So this is a referral back to staff for consultation through the Cowichan Tribes Tumuk Committee.
Okay, this is really interesting that this topic is suddenly of so much interest. This is a CVRD park, and the heron are taken into great consideration for this community and the whole area. And then we had the nature park, the nature conservation center here approving this project because of the damage that's being done. And so now we're gonna send it to another table, looking for their consultation because a couple people are not happy with the direction this is going. But then what? Do we want that do we want that referral though? Like, are we gonna listen to that
Point of order.
advice? I'm just
A point of order. I feel like
confused.
you have been attributing motivation to comments that I've made. My position is that we should have full information before we make the decision. That is all. I certainly understand and support
So,
a trail if that's the appropriate way to go.
Director Nicholson, so your point of order is heard. You know, it's not fair that we attribute motivations to anybody's words. It's within the rights of any member of this body to put forward a motion to refer and make their own statements. But we can only speak for ourselves at this table. So let's try not to ascribe motivations or inferences to other people's words. But Director Acton has the floor. I'll let you finish speaking on the referral. There's a motion on the floor to refer back to staff and consult with Cowichan Tribes Tumuk Committee. And if you'd like to speak to the referral, please do.
I guess I don't completely understand this referral board, and like, we've never referred to this board before, and do we refer parks matters to other boards. It's just,
So-
seems.
I appreciate
Very
that. I can tell you
interesting.
from a different local government experience, that any parks matter or land use matter in our area is referred to Staminas First Nation for consultation on every land use matter and parks matter. In the past, we didn't, and it became quite aware to us that even dedicating a park without consultation was considered inappropriate, along with making changes in them. I'm only speaking from my example. I've had this discussion with staff about the process, but we can't confuse this issue. I don't want to continue to discuss this in a circular argument. I think everybody's made their case, but I will go through the speakers list. But I'm feeling like I'm running out of patience for a cyclical argument. I think I hear everybody who's spoken on this, their viewpoints quite clearly that were reflected in the EASC meeting that I watched a week ago. But I do want those who haven't spoken to have an opportunity to speak. I saw Director Staples.
Could I call a point of order, please?
Yes.
Of multiple
can.
referrals. A referral motion has been defeated. I've never seen at this table a second referral motion on an item that's already been put on the table, a referral made, a referral defeated, an additional referral. That is, I think, bad practice because continual referral motions to delay a motion
Thank
can
you.
be done.
So I will say on a the referrals were on a completely different subject matter on the same item. We're going to take a 5-minute recess and check with our parliamentary secretary and staff to see the appropriateness of the referral that's on the floor, and it may be ruled out of order and we won't consider it. If it is in order, we'll come back and we'll go to my speakers list and then we'll vote. Discussion to do. Welcome back, Director Segal. Aren't you glad you're here? Director McClinton's glad he's at home right now. No, waiting for, yeah. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone, to our spicy afternoon of CVRD board meetings. We still are on the ruling for whether the appropriateness of the second referral motion on number 8, the Wessex Ravine Park Stairway. The ruling of our corporate officers is Ms. Mohan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the ruling is that multiple referral motions are allowed on a motion. And there doesn't seem to be any prohibition that we can find. Additionally, the example was given that like a main motion on a floor on an item, if the main motion doesn't cover everything that the board wants to discuss and debate over that item, subsequent motions can come forward on the same item in the same way as subsequent referral motions can come forward on the same item.
So if this item was not allowed, then the director would still be able to make a motion asking that it refer to do the same effect as this referral motion on the motion that's on the floor. Like you're saying, he could make a subsequent motion if this had been ruled out of order.
Yes, I think that's also correct, yes. But with respect to a second referral motion, there doesn't seem to be any prohibition against a second referral motion on the same recommended item from committee.
I'm going to accept that ruling. We're going to go to the calling the question on the referral. I think I still had Director Staples on the speakers list on this second motion to refer.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the referral to the Tumut Committee at Cowichan Tribes, I really feel like that is something that I guess I had anticipated would have been done prior to it ending up here. And I know that in our parks, specifically in Macadam, where we have river frontage and other things that we border with Cowichan Tribes, and even when we're making decisions about that, we do work with the Tumut committee and staff at Cowichan Tribe. So it's a really, I think, strong practice. So I would support this motion for referral. And looking at the time of, it's not until after August 15th that anything can even be done. So I feel like because of the nesting, so I feel like that there's enough time to have that discussion.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try and get this to a vote, but I did see Director Abbott on the motion to refer, and I'm going to try and tighten things up here a bit because my loosey-goosey ways have not led to good process. Director Abbott.
This is in Area D's OCP, of which the author of the letter from Tribes most recently received was a member of our OCP panel. And I think, I believe consultation for this project was all a part of that process at that time.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the referral? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And I'm going to count the opposed. Opposed, we have Directors Abbott, Segal, Wilson, Istash, Vomaka, Morrison, Douglas, Acton. The motion is, and McClinton. Motion is defeated. We're back to the main motion.
Sorry, can I take it?
Roll call again?
Yes, could we please?
Sorry,
roll
I'll
call
go
that again?
again.
Just to make sure we
Directors
got it.
Abbott, Segal, Wilson, Istash, Vomaka, Morrison, Douglas, Acton, McClinton. Motion is defeated. Back to the main motion. Any further discussion on the main motion? Any other procedural funny works to be done? Calling the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Directors Justice, Nicholson, Deck, Martman, and Staples opposed. The motion carries. I have some advice, but I'm going to save that till after the meeting, and I'll talk to you after the meeting. Director Abbott, if you can give me 5 minutes. Okay, now we're moving on to electoral area directors only. Director Nicholson.
I'd like to move that the recommendation of the Agricultural Policy and Regulations Best Practices for the CVRD report be considered an electoral area bylaw developments for the CVRD OCP for the electoral areas bylaw number 4373 and comprehensive land use bylaw number 4374. And that the Agricultural Policy and Regulations Best Practices for the CVRD report be posted on Plan Your Cowichan with a 90-day opportunity for the public to submit ideas on policy implementation.
That's moved by Director Nicholson. It's for electoral area directors only, seconded by Director Wilson. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So that does take us to item number 10. So a note from staff that the applicant has actually withdrawn the application. So it's not necessary to deal with that item, but just for the record, for all involved, public and directors, that application has been withdrawn. Director Nicholson.
Could I just have clarification on when, so if they've withdrawn it, that means they can still bring it forward at a later date?
Yep.
Is there a time frame around that later date?
Through the
Go
chair
ahead,
to
Ms. Moore.
Director Nicholson, if this recommendation is left, then I don't believe there is a time associated with it. If the recommendation goes forward and is denied, then there is a 1-year period. However, the applicant may come forward in advance of that 1 year and resubmit with a 2/3 vote of the board.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Ms. Mohan, I think that takes us to CR4, which was our late item. So that is the Committee of the Whole reports and recommends. I'll move over to Director Morrison from this morning's meeting.
Mr. Chair, this was printed in this morning's agenda package in advance. Do you want them read since it's come to the committee today, or can I move them as a block?
It's at your pleasure. I think it's the Sport Tourism Grant Subcommittee. If you wanted to read through them for the public who wasn't able to see them.
Alrighty then. Your Committee of the Whole reports and recommends from this morning. One, that the following sport tourism event grants totaling $16,450 be approved. One, CVAX Roadrunners Cowichan Autumn Classic, $2,000. Two, Cowichan Bay Sailing Association, Cowichan Bay Regatta, $1,000. Three, Cowichan Trail Society, Stewardship Society, BC Bike Race for $1,500. Four, Cowichan Trail Stewardship Society, Belgian Waffle Ride, $1,000. Five, Cowichan Valley Lacrosse Association, U17 Lacrosse Provincials, $1,500. Six, Cowichan Valley Wrestling Club, QMS Christmas Classic, $1,500. Seven, Ladysmith's Shemana Swim Club, Orca Splash Swim Meet, $250. Eight, Lake Cowichan Minor Hockey Association, U13 Hockey Tournament, $1,000. Nine, Lake Cowichan Minor Hockey Association, U15 Hockey Tournament, $1,000. And the same 10 for the U18 Hockey Tournament, $1,000. 11, Rowing Canada Aviron 2023 National Rowing Championship Regatta, $2,000. 12, South Cowichan Lawn Tennis Club VI Grass Court Championship, $1,500. 13, Stumanis Education Society Stumanis Soccer Festival, $1,200. Two, that a conditional grant in the amount of $1,000 be allocated to HG Excavating for the Cowichan Canoe Race event on January 21st, 23rd, July 21st, 23rd, on the basis that they will either form or partner with a nonprofit society prior or eligible association to the event that will satisfy the sport tourism event grant eligibility criteria. And one, that this must be a 3-1. I get all the numbering fun ones today. The recreation fees and charges, actually, I'd like to pull those, call the first two, if I could, please.
Thank you. I don't have the paper anymore, but I'll look to you. Okay, number 312. Thank you. So, and we'll pull 312. So you move the first block of items there, 1
Yep.
and 2.
Yep.
Seconded by Director Istash. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. And to 3, 1, and 2.
The 3-1, that recreation fees and charges, Ice Arena policy be approved with the addition of seniors admission rate to be included, and 2, that the 2023-2025 Ice Arena fee schedule be approved.
Thank you. So,
I move it.
seconded by Director Nicholson. Discussion. We discussed it this morning, so it's more for votes for the record. Call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Director Morrison and Chair Stone opposed. Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Morrison. So that moves us on to staff reports. Ms. Mohan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't have any direct reports. Yeah, so staff reports, SR1 is actually a report from myself in my capacity as General Manager, Corporate Services Department regarding the Duncan Housing Society use of housing trust funds. And we have with us today Dr. Shelley Cook, who's here to make a presentation. And the report from me is really by way of background. And so, Shelley, if you'd like to come up to the podium, welcome.
Just turn your microphone on, just blue button there. Thank you. Welcome.
There we go. I've had an opportunity to really up my Robert's Rules of Orders game today, so I want to thank you for that. The principal from Wiser Projects, Kaylee Wiseman, is actually here to speak to the details of the request. The board will previously recall that you have approved from the Housing Trust Fund $300,000 towards the capital construction of Duncan Manor, the redevelopment of Duncan Manor. And that was to be used once final approval from BC Housing for funding was received. So as you know, they have needed to pivot to a new site at 468 Jubilee Avenue. As a result, they are needing to do some additional studies and analysis to get the project to a point where we can have final project approval from BC Housing. So it is a subtle but important difference that the CHA board wanted the CVRD board to be aware of. We stand in strong support of what is a very important project, but we just wanted to ensure you're aware. We have the check written, ready to go at your approval, but it will be used then to advance the project to final project funding approval by BC Housing. And we have Kaylee, if there are specific requests or questions regarding what the nature of those studies and uses are for the funds now.
Thank you. Ms. Wiseman, did you want to speak to this, or are you just here for questions?
Thank you. I'm just here for questions.
Okay, thank you. So for clarity, I'll go to Director Wilson.
Yeah, I have no questions for Dr. Cook, but I would like to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Staples. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to both of you for your patience. And we hope we've kept it entertaining for you this afternoon. Thank you, and we'll see you soon. I always feel bad when they stay for 13 seconds of deliberation. But they learned a lot about Heron today. Moving on, Ms. Mohan, public hearing, or SR2.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. SR2 is a report from the Land Use Services Department regarding application number RZ19I01, Laketown Ranch and Teleglobe Properties, and this is for information.
Thank you for information. Okay, seeing none, we'll move along. Ms. Mohan.
So the next item is the recommendations from public hearings. And so is it normally the committee's practice that the recommendation be read out? Is that right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
just say PH1 and then the
Okay, so the
CVRD.
PH1, the recommendation is that CVRD bylaw number 4472, Electoral Areas Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2023, and that CVRD bylaw number 4473, Electoral Area F, Cowichan Lake, South Scotts Falls Zoning Amendment Bylaw, Missachi Lake Fire Hall 2023 be received.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Nicholson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Director Morrison.
Just two things. Unless anybody's got any specific issues with these, can't we move these as a block?
Yeah, these are just public hearing minutes receipts, so unless you'd want to, Director Deck.
I'd like to speak to PH3, please.
Okay, so notwithstanding PH3, if we're okay to move 2 through 7 as a block minus PH3.
So moved.
Seconded by Director Abbott. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries. And going to PH3. Ms.
I'll
Mohan.
read out the recommendation, which is that CVRD bylaw 4429, Electoral Areas Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw, Laketown Ranch / Teleglobe, 2022, and CVRD bylaw number 4430, Electoral Area I, Yubo Mead Creek Zoning Amendment Bylaw, Laketown Ranch, Teleglobe, 2022, be received.
Director Deck? Okay, moved by Director Deck, seconded by Director Morrison. You'd like to speak to it? Director Deck, and just turn on your microphone.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
These bylaws will be coming up later in the meeting, so I'd like to be able to speak to you now about my feelings and the feelings of the community that I've heard from.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. We haven't got to reading of the bylaws. I think that would be the appropriate time. This is just a receipt of the public hearing documents. I think in order-wise, like I understand her desire to speak to them, but unless it's about the veracity and accuracy of the public hearing documents, then that, I don't believe that's.
Yeah,
now
to
would
be
the
fair, I
time.
thought it would be discussed under SR2.
Yes.
Which was the previous item, but I don't know if staff can provide any recommendation here on that point of order. I don't recall that. Mr. Rolfe.
Mr. Chair, it would be, I think it would be appropriate for the directors to debate when the bylaw comes forward for consideration.
So we'll receive the minutes, Director Deck, and then I'll make sure I come to you. And I will,
Happy to do that.
under bylaws, I will consolidate the agenda a little bit so that BEA 7 and BEA 11, which I think are the two bylaws, I don't know why they're broken up in our bylaws, but we will discuss those sequentially. So we'll reorder those as well. So on the question, to call the question on the public hearing minutes receipt, if it's okay with the group, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. I feel like I'm riding in a wagon with one square wheel today. We're moving on to bylaws, I believe then, right, Mrs. Mohan? Go ahead.
Okay, so again, you're wanting to move them as a block without BEA 7 and BEA 11?
Generally on bylaws, no, we
No, we
read
have
them,
to
we
read them
read
out?
them out
Okay.
one by one.
It's
yeah.
all good. All right, so I will move forward with BEA 1, and that, it says that CVRD bylaw number 4474, Water Systems Regulatory and Management Amendment Bylaw 2023 be adopted.
No, for second and third readings.
Oh, sorry.
There's two parts to this one. yeah.
Aha, okay. So let's go back to that CVRD bylaw number 4474, Water Systems Regulatory and Management Amendment Bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third readings.
That's moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Wilson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And that CVRD bylaw 4474, Water Systems Regulatory and Management Amendment Bylaw 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries. And just for the record, these are all electoral area only bylaws. Ms. Mohan.
That CVRD bylaw number 4475, Sewer Systems Regulatory and Management Amendment Bylaw 2023 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Item BEA 2, that CVRD bylaw number 4475, Sewer Systems Regulatory and Management Amendment Bylaw 2023 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Wilson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 3, that CVRD bylaw number 4449, Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2022 be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 3, that CVRD bylaw number 4449, Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2022 be adopted.
Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Nicholson. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 4, that CVRD bylaw number 4334, South Cowichan Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2020 be granted third reading as amended.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Martman. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 5, that CVRD bylaw number 4421, Official Community Plan for the Electoral Areas Amendment Bylaw 2022 be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Segal. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. So this is BEA 7?
No, we're at BEA 6.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Trying to get to the good part.
BEA 6, that CVRD bylaw number 4422, South Cowichan Zoning Amendment Bylaw 3570 Telegraph Road, PID 010-427-171, 2022 be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Abbott. All those in favor?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Director Acton.
Can I just have clarity on how?
Microphone, please.
Could I just have clarity on how that's different from BEA 5? So that I'm really clear on what we're voting on here.
Two different bylaws, 4421 and
But it's
4422.
same property?
Same property, different bylaw. One is the OCP and one
Okay,
is the
okay, yeah.
zoning.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was getting there. I was just reading there. Just give me a chance, Director Douglas. I'm under fire today. Now where are we? Still in BA 6? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Now to BEA 7. And I let Ms.
So-
Mohan read it out,
I'll
and
read
then,
it out,
yeah.
BEA 7, the CVRD bylaw number 4429, electoral areas official community plan amendment bylaw, Laketown Ranch, Teleglobe, 2022, be granted third reading as amended.
Director Deck.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I really have to oppose the passage of this bylaw based on my reading of the official community plan and my understanding of urban containment boundaries. And thank goodness for the North Star that we have in the form of the official community plan. It's long in the making and not to be set aside lightly. So, first of all, the 95% of Area I is private managed forest land. And so the communities that are spread along the lake, the historic logging and milling communities, are what is written in the report of March 16th, 2022, to be a form of sprawl. And my reading of densification is that it should happen within the urban containment boundary, and for the reasons that it gives residents easy access to stores and services, and reduces single vehicle use, and provides public transportation, and creates complete communities. So I feel like, first of all, we need to respect that urban containment boundary. And then also there's a shortage of industrial areas in Area I. And so this community, this new development, 265 houses, would be in the middle of what is already industrial land. It's surrounded, so for example, the residents would be closer to the Meads Creek Recycling and Solid Waste Center than the grocery store. They'd be closer to the cannabis facility than the pharmacy. They'd be closer to the manufactured factory where they're manufacturing the houses for that development. And they'd be closer to the music festival site than they would the library, for example. And as far as walking distance, not anywhere near public transport. And so everyone in that community, the dwellings, would have to take their carbon or their fossil fuel car to either Lake Cowichan or further afield if they're needing any services there. And it would also be the RV resort would either involve these fossil fuel vehicles, big ones, or cars that they would either be driven there or towed by cars. And so part of this agreement, part of this proposal says that they have to have a housing agreement which would give them notice about possible noise, dust, and smells. So the residents would have to sign this agreement, and that would preempt their complaints about quality of life issues. So I'm almost done. I've stayed up many nights, so these are the things that roam around in my head. So finally, I think, oh yeah, watershed sustainability and management. It's a concern everywhere in the region, and this proposed development sits on a very large and productive aquifer. I believe there are now 5 wells on this site, but there are those nearby, right next door in fact, who don't have a high volume of water. And so with the latest news about water restrictions beginning in May, it just brings to mind how important it is to link watershed sustainability and water management with decisions we make about land. So I think that's about it. I feel like if we stay true to the North Star of our community plan and the urban containment boundary, the way it is, I think the community will be better off, the larger community, including Lake Cowichan, which, you know, would have to, people would need to depend on services which are stretched already there. So on that point, I'll close. Thank you.
So were you making a motion though on that item?
Yeah, I'm making a motion to deny those.
To BEA 7.
Yeah, both.
That's been moved by Director Deck. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Nicholson. So the motion is not as in the package. The motion is that CVRD bylaw number 4429, Electoral Official Community Plan Amendment bylaw, Laketown Ranch, Teleglobe 2022 be denied. And to the motion, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was going to mention under our public hearing section that I sort of play a role in this in the agenda preparation. There was a lot of reading this last few days, and we're going to have to think about not having so many public hearing reports and in an agenda package, because I read it all. And I bring it to this particular item in the agenda, or the public hearing review. In reading this, there were 2 public hearings, and there's been, I think, 2 public information meetings. And this has been very well discussed, and there are a small number of folks that are very passionate about it. And I stopped reading after, I think, item number or exhibit number 50, because the overwhelming preponderance of submissions were in support of this. Now, we can all read through the package and see there were form letters on both sides. There were arguments on both sides as to the nature of the economic development aspects, the housing needs aspects, the sewer issues that precipitated, or the sewer covenant issue that precipitated the second public hearing. This has been going on for a long time. I've attended most of the site meetings, and I just wonder if, as a board, when we are facing a housing crisis, we're facing job vacancy crises, we're facing issues around complete communities, and it's a really interesting view, because we hear 4 kilometers to the grocery store. And I'm thinking, gosh, wouldn't that be great? Being 8 kilometers from a grocery store. The possibility of people using bicycles and e-bikes, and the development that is taking place on some of the Subasat First Nations land to increase trails and the likes. You know, in the overall preponderance of what I'm reading in this and what the previous board had read in this, or previous electoral area services committee read in this, was this, on balance, looked to be ticking a lot of boxes for the Cowichan Lake area and the region as a whole. And I'm even going to hearken back to, I think it was around a 2000 report. It was the Hansen report on transitioning from the forestry economy to other types of economic development. And a festival site was one of those key things that no one would ever thought would be realized, and it now exists. Now, we speak about the GHG productions and the likes, and I know that there are people, and part of the applicant's desire was that when this is operating as a festival site, that there was the ability for people to be able to stay on site and work on site and live on site, so that there wouldn't be as much of the commuting that has to be done. And let's face it, that was a lot of what we were talking about in the workforce housing report that we saw this morning. So I hear what the directors for the area are saying. I read all of the submissions that came with both public hearings. And I'm looking at this on balance, thinking that this is starting to tackle some of those issues that are pressing all of us. And on balance, I think this is worth supporting, and I won't support the resolution on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Directors Wilson, Nicholson, Acton, and Deck. Okay, Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And much as I would honestly like and sincerely like to support the director for the area on this one, in this particular case, I can't. And there are only 3 points that I'd like to make from the actual report that we've got here. Number one, which says, provide small-scale attainable housing for various stages of life. That one is a very important one. All stages, various stages of life, not just the young people, everybody else. Another one is maintains a housing agreement to protect the long-term affordability of the site and to prevent any age-related restrictions from being established on the site. That's another important one. It's encompassing a huge area of the population. And as if I recall it correctly, when we were given the tour, that has something to do with keeping the speculators away. And trying to maintain a reasonable cost for those houses. And the last one is caps the total number of units for residential development to protect the environmental functioning of the site. Just those 3 alone all have to do with housing, all have to do with age-related housing. And I honestly, I will reiterate, Director Deck, I wish I could support you on this one. I can't. Thank you.
I have Director Nicholson and then Deck. Director Acton's been removed from the list.
Thank you. I've had a really difficult time with the development at Lake Town Ranch since the very beginning, largely because I feel that our plans are not, we haven't checked in with the community adequately enough. And it's really, for me, it speaks to the fact that we don't have, I guess, a regional growth strategy or at least a regional growth plan, because we are very, it's very challenging to push density into the rural areas, into the electoral areas, because by and large, we don't have the servicing we need. And I think this is a perfect example of that. Lake Town Ranch itself, when it was first built, has changed, I think, the dynamics in the Cowichan Lake area hugely. And we haven't had sort of an evaluation of the goods and the bads of that to use to consider whether we should go into phase 2 and add even more activity in an area that is largely, has been forestry industrial. So I am very, I don't think that this is the time to do this. I think it would be very wise to finish our MOCP and to do there should be a collaborative plan for the lake, Cowichan Lake area, I think, that really thinks about how we manage growth and where it should go and deal with the servicing issues, because it's honestly, we're changing what was a forestry and mill town area into a recreation area, yet you can hardly find a place to get down to the lake. It's crazy. Like, I just don't get it. And then the tubers, there's so many tubers now, the river can hardly handle it. I really think that we need to stop and do some proper planning and checking in with the community. And I know this has divided the community, and yes, I too read the hearing things, and there were enough people that it came out to raise significant concerns about this, as well as people supporting this notion of affordable housing, but whether this will actually meet that affordable housing goal that everyone talks about, it just remains unclear to me. So I won't be supporting this. I will be supporting the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Director Deck.
Regarding housing, there was a whole section I left out of my little, my speech. So when we were on a tour with the proponent of this, this development, I asked, who will be living in those little dwellings? And he said, well, they're probably going to be for seniors who are downsizing or moving, I forget what the other, but he said seniors, and young people who will be working in the industrial area nearby. And so it got me to thinking, and so I said, and actually I was thinking what I was going to ask him next, and he said, but we won't be able to say no to the snowbirds. And so I thought, this housing project or this development is not going to be a social housing development. And it's, and then when I was thinking about the young people working in the industrial area nearby, I thought, well, these people are going to be in their child rearing years, and these houses are very, very small. They're certainly not meant for families. So I think what we need, first of all, what we heard this morning is rentals and affordable rentals, because I think the industrial area nearby, I don't know what the wages they make, but you know, almost no one can afford a house now, and these houses are not as attainable or as affordable as one might think. So those workers also may be traveling from job to job. We don't have careers that last a lifetime in the same spot as we used to. So I think this is less than, let me say that it's aspirational when they say about the amenities, about the housing. They're aspirational. For example, the swimming pool that they're going to be putting up there, they say that it's potentially the owner will allow local people to go swimming there. So potential isn't an amenity, as far as I'm concerned. It's you know, up to the discretion of the developer. And so I think that, yeah, that's all I have to say about housing. But then the Subasset, I think the property that was going to have walking trails in it and bike lanes, I think that now is a rock quarry, if the Sioux aggregate. No? The walking trails weren't going to be through there. Oh, well, that's just maybe another industry next door to the housing development then. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, on housing too, there's not enough proof that this is going to be a benefit to the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I did Director Acton's back, and then I'll go to round two, Director Morrison.
I tried to.
And, round one will be Director McClinton next.
For your sake, I tried not to say anything, but I just, I agree with a lot of the comments here, and as far as community benefit, I think it was really, this development was a little weak on what amenities it was bringing forward. But this, in my mind, this development was approved by the previous board, and it had a minor technicality and had to come back and go back to public hearing. So the planning, yes, perhaps we'll discover that it should have been planned out better and certain things defined better, and that was debated for years at the previous table. And like any development, there's sometimes some things that need to be improved and once it's done. But in my mind, this application is just back over wording on the water system. So I'm gonna support this application or this hearing bylaw, passing the bylaw, adopting the bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Director McClinton.
Through the chair, thank you. Certainly empathize with the director's sentiments and trying to listen to people in the area. But for me personally, just being a little bit younger, having a family, I think our failure as a nation, not as a board, in Canada around housing and the lack thereof it's borderline unconscionable. I mean, we have a thoughtful development, to know exactly who's going to be moving in there. Is this going to solve all the problems? No, because we're in an absolute crisis. I mean, when urban sprawl has more of a negative connotation than homelessness, like our communities are going to be changing. It's how are we going to guide the change? And so, unfortunately, I can't support the denial of this. Just one other point, I was just listening to the CBC the other day. 60% of people that don't own a home right now have given up hope that they will ever own a home. And, I just think that, this is what we're here for. So I'll be cannot support the motion right now, but I will be supporting the project to move forward.
Thank you, Director Morrison, for round two.
We speak of housing crisis. I'm going to talk just very briefly about the reputational crisis of our organization and of our area to do business. And I firstly want to start with, in a time of crisis, perfect is an enemy of good. And there is good in this proposal, and it may not be perfect, and many of the points that have made may be true. But I'm going to tell you about at the Honeymoon Bay Hall when we had the MOCP launch and local area plan discussions. The meeting concluded, and I was essentially set upon by 3 developers. And it's so hard to do business in the CBRD. It's so long to get our work done. It's so costly to provide what's needed here. And all 3 of these developers turned and said, and look at what's being done to Greg at the Lake Down Ranch development. So, that's a segment of the population that we're going to have to rely on. And so at this stage, I think there's been comments about the technical nature of why we're having this discussion here as opposed to maybe a few months ago. I think it's time to move forward with this. I won't be supporting the denial.
Thank you. I'm going to go around again. This is for electoral area directors only. The motion on the floor is to deny under BEA 7. Are there any further speakers? Director Deck.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments of my fellow directors. On the topic of housing, though, this is not a housing project. The people that are moving in there, like Mr. Adams said, will be more than likely snowbirds who aren't having a housing crisis in their lives. And the young people that may move in, they're in their childbearing years. I have to say it again. It just seems to me that this is aspirational and not proven that it's going to benefit housing for people who really need it. So thanks for your input, everyone. I'm grateful for your wisdom, but I'm sad.
Thank you. Sorry, I looked down at my paper and I saw a hand over there. Director Vomaka.
Director. Sorry, I didn't realize that as the town of Lake Cowichan, I could speak to it even though I can't vote. We've had some discussion in the community, especially around ambulance services. And we've had, I guess I can say that we've had discussions with our RCMP that there is a concern about the concerts that are coming out there are getting larger, and they're putting potential strain in our community. Now you add a housing complex to that area too, which is more people, could potentially
impact our ability to be able to protect our own citizens that live there year-round. We had a discussion too.
Point of order?
Point of order, sorry?
Sorry.
Just, maybe just clarifying, sorry to interrupt. Are we able to add new information into the debate?
No.
Are we? That's my point of order.
Thank you. So, sorry, Director Vomaka, yeah, you're bringing information to a discussion that's gone
Okay.
through a public hearing. So that would be not appropriate. That the time to give that input would be either at or prior to the public hearing.
Okay, I was told that I was allowed to speak on it.
You're
so
allowed
my
to speak, but you
apologies.
can't introduce new information.
Okay, so without the information, I would be asking this board to possibly look at the impacts that this will cause in this area. Am I
Thank you.
allowed to say that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So the motion on the floor is to deny. Seeing none. This is for electoral area directors only. All those in favor? And opposed? So we have directors Abbott, Segal, Wilson, Morrison, Martman, Acton, McClinton opposed. The motion is defeated. So we still have,
Move the recommended resolution to approve.
for third reading as amended.
Yep.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director McClinton. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Ms. Mohan, we were going to move up BEA 11 because it's the next related bylaw, and then we'll go back to the list.
So BEA 11 is that CVRD bylaw number 4430, Electoral Area I, Yubo Mead Creek Zoning Amendment Bylaw, Laketown Ranch, Teleglobe 2022, be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director McClinton. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor and opposed? Director Nicholson and Deck opposed, motion carries. Back to BEA 8.
BEA 8, that CVRD bylaw number 4471, Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake Zoning Amendment Bylaw, Suites Amendment 2023, be granted third reading.
Moved by, these are all electoral area directors only, so I'm looking for you to be hot on your toes. 8, yes. Sweet, sorry, moved by Director Acton, seconded by Director Morrison. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Okay, previous bylaw for adoption.
Yeah, so-
BEA 8.
Yes, BA 8, CVRD bylaw 4471 for adoption. Moved by Director Abbott, seconded by Director Acton. Any discussion? Director Acton?
Well, there was a letter in the board package that I had asked staff if that could be, I had replied, if, there was a letter in the board package on this topic, and the person made a point that,
Okay.
about the bylaw, but could that, I asked if that could be discussed in.
Everybody's waving their arms at me. Go ahead.
It was added to the public hearing.
Oh, it was in the public hearing minutes that we had, yeah.
Oh,
So it was back under,
well, I was hoping it could be discussed
well,
at
you-
ESC or something, like, so that it could actually be discussed, not before not before.
sorry, Mr.
You know, like when we get correspondence to the board, we can bring it up for discussion, but we couldn't do that because this, or I couldn't request that because this is
Mr. Chair?
coming up for final adoption. So I wanted to, could it be referred to the next EASC meeting?
So BEA 8, that you
No,
want to
the
refer?
letter, the letter of correspondence on this topic that was in the board package.
So, Mr. Chair, my understanding was that the correspondence was received prior to the close of the public hearing, and so the correspondence was appended to the public hearing record.
Yeah.
If the the board wishes to discuss the public hearing record upon consideration of bylaw readings or adoption, you can do that now.
Yeah.
That would be the appropriate,
Or
this would
if
be
you
the
wanted to
appropriate venue.
discuss what the content of that letter in a more general sense at EAS, you
Yeah,
could make a separate motion.
That's what I would like.
And so further to my point, there will be, as I've noted to the EA directors, a report coming forward on housing options. Once we're through the bylaw process for, for in-stream bylaws that are dealing with housing amendments, and that there is an opportunity to discuss that correspondence at that time, should the directors be in agreement with that approach.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we are on BE8 for adoption. It's been moved and seconded, correct? Yes. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed? I feel like the square wheel fell off. Now we're on a three-wheeled wagon.
Okay, we're on to BEA 9, which is that CVRD bylaw number 4333, Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2023, be granted third reading as amended.
Moved by Director Wilson, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Director Nicholson opposed. Motion carries.
And BEA 10, that CVRD bylaw number 4477, Electoral Area G, Saltaire Gulf Island Zoning Amendment Bylaw 10983, Chemainus Road 2023, be granted third reading.
Moved by Director McClinton, seconded by Director Martman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And the same bylaw for adoption.
Moved by Director McClinton, seconded by Director Martman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. We've dealt with number 11, Ms. Mohan.
BEA 12, that CVRD bylaw number 4480, South Cowichan Zoning Amendment Bylaw 3280, Trans-Canada High 2023, be granted first and second readings.
Moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Nicholson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 13, that CVRD bylaw number 4472, Electoral Areas Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2023, be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Martman. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And the same for adoption.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Abbott. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
BEA 14, that CVRD bylaw number 4473, Electoral Area F, Cowichan Lake South, Scoots Falls Zoning Amendment Bylaw, Massachi Lake Fire Hall 2023, be granted third reading.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Martman. Discussion? None, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
And the same for adoption.
Moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Martman. All those in favor? And opposed? None opposed, motion carries.
Okay, so going on to, there's no resolutions under 15 or unfinished business under 16, but we did get a notice of motion under 17.
Through to you, Director Nicholson.
Thank you. I have a notice of motion that staff be directed to develop a framework for parks development referrals, including the integration of an Indigenous relations lens.
Okay, that's just a notice of motion. Does it require a mover and a seconder, or is that just a notice of motion for our next meeting? Yeah, so it's just a notice of motion for everybody's information, and there'll be more information on our next agenda. Do you want to speak to it before we move on?
Well, I just
Director
want to say I
Nicholson?
sent it around if you want to think about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please do think about it. All right, so that takes us to Ms. Mohan.
Item 18, new business. There's nothing under new business, and so we're on to item 19, question period.
When Mr. Evans said, when you guys tap out, I'm with you. Seeing none in-house for question period, are there any online?
No, there's nobody online with questions.
I think that moves us to closed session.
Yes, so looking for a motion that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, with subsections noted in the closed session agenda.
Moved by Director Martman, seconded by Director Douglas. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?